You have to take a step. Have you ever felt God calling you to do something, but you don't know how to get it done? Today we're going to discover why it's so important to just take that step. It reminded me of the Chinese bamboo. See, the Chinese bamboo grows 90 feet in 5 years. But here's the thing. It doesn't break the soil surface for about 5 years. It grows that 90 feet in 5 weeks. It's growing so fast, you can visually see it grow. It is an amazing feat, and I think it matches a brilliant promise from God. See, all too often, God calls us to do something, and we ruminate, meaning spin it around in our mind of how we're going to do it. The wonderful thing about God is He doesn't call you to do something unless He wants you to do it. See, but what can happen to me is I'll move God when I know how to do it. But that's where the Chinese bamboo tree comes in. See, if you stop taking care of it, giving it the environment it wants, stop watering it, in any of those 5 years, it will never grow. I'm convinced that one of the biggest hindrances to us living out what God calls us to do are these. Now, I'm not telling you to go blind, but I am telling you that sometimes your eyesight and what you see around you and how you can visually see something happen stops you and I from doing what God called us to do. See, we project our current reality into an unknown, unfathomable future. And here's why that can be a problem. See, David was a shepherd boy that became king. Gideon was a fearful coward that became a captain of an army. Joseph was a daddy's boy, verbal processor, who became second command of the world's largest power at the time. Paul was a persecutor of Christians that became someone that wrote a third of the New Testament. See, if they would have stayed in their current reality and not followed God and started, when He called them out, where would we be? See, we think sometimes following God is like a clear day when we're driving. Sun is out, birds chirping, He calls us into something. We know exactly where we're going. But that's not how it is. Following God and just starting is like driving through fog. And here in Oregon, we have to do this all the time. Like, when you're driving through fog, sometimes when it's really dense, you have to slow your car way down because you cannot see that far in front of you. But if I slow my car to a stop, I'll never be able to see a little further down the road. But when we move slowly through the fog, more gets revealed as we move. The same thing is true when God calls you to do something. It's not going to be laid out in front of you. It's going to be like driving through fog. And we really need to form the habit of someone that goes when God says to go. Something that's really helped me in this is forming my identity around that. Here's what I mean. I am a man that does what God calls me to do the moment He calls me to do it. I am forming that identity. The more I call that forward, the more I verbalize that, the more I say that, that's who I am. Even when sometimes my actions don't live that out. See, the more I live in that, the more I do it. Similarly, I'm a runner. Why am I a runner? Because I run. Right? So, but I started saying those things. I'm a runner when I wasn't running. When I was overweight and out of shape, and I had just had a newborn at home and I was tired and I didn't want to run, I'm a runner. I'm a person that runs. See, this is one of the ways that we can be someone that starts when God says to start. See, the Word says who you are. And the way that we become a person that starts is by memorizing Scripture. See, in the Bible, it says you are more than a conqueror. It doesn't say you're someone that just sits idly by when God says to do something. You're more than a conqueror. It also says in there that He has plans for your life, that He's prepared good works for you to do. It says that you're above and not below. It says all sorts of things. Do you know what it says about you? See, that's how we become someone that starts. We have that identity. And God says who you are. Not your brain, but God. And the more we can memorize that, it makes it a little easier to start. Something else that's helped me is to shorten the time horizon. Shorten the time horizon. Here's what I mean. Kind of what I'm talking about right there is when God tells you to start, do you say, in a few weeks? The more I'm not moving, the harder it is to get moving. It's kind of like you can't really steer a parked car. You got to actually put your foot on that gas pedal a little bit. So shorten the time horizon. Move. And here's another step that helps me just to start. Is each time God calls me to do something and I do it, I celebrate the action, not the result. This is a lot of what we're talking about here. You can't judge by your eyes. It'll lead you astray. Because that bamboo's underneath the surface growing when you do what God calls you to do. God doesn't call you to judge the results. He calls you to be obedient in what He tells you to do. May you be blessed today as you do what God tells you to do and leave the results to Him.